Dude, how you doing, mate?
Hey there, how are you?
I'm good, man. How's things?
Good.
Well, super appreciate you coming in on an early one.
Of course,
Thank
it's a good time.
So, I just want to have like a nice little chat. I know you and Deck have been working behind the scenes pretty well, so I just wanted to catch up, see how things are, and obviously just catch up on the journey as well. So, dude, just tell me about how it's been for you.
I have to say, I didn't know what to expect when I joined the program, and I kind of like dove in, like basically without knowing what to expect and what will happen. And I went through a few ups and downs, but overall, I felt like I said, I feel very proud that I stuck with the program. And number two, I've made this a priority because I tend to put other people and projects as my priority. And this was one instance where after a long time, I put myself as, I'm worth it. I need to do this for myself, for my kids, for my family. So when the results started showing up, it felt like very gratifying for me. So far, I feel like feel blessed to kind of have gone through this transformation rather than just scrolling and watching other people's. So it's pretty real. So it's nice.
That's awesome. And would you say that putting yourself on the back burner was kind of how you got to the position of being, the 220 pound mark?
Yeah, and it was years rolled by where I knew that I was not in the best shape, but you're not willing to accept it. When you look at the mirror, you're like, oh yeah, you're all right. But you feel like, yeah, you're happy and you feel like nothing needs to really change or why bother point. It's not like you're trying to impress anybody and all of that. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, you look terrible. And for me, the wake up call was when I went to India and for my brother's wedding. And about a few months later, the wedding pictures show up and I'm like, who is this guy? And it was my wake up call. It was very real to have seen pictures of myself and not being able to recognize myself. So I was like, I need to do something. And then that's when I came across and started this program.
And now you're 16, 17 kilos. Have you got the exact amount in pounds?
I started off, I believe, 227. And then right now I'm at around 190, 191, 192. That's where my maintenance phase. So yeah, it's like about almost more than 35 pounds or so. And it feels unreal sometimes. But when I'm like sprinting up the stairs, it feels pretty good that I'm not winded when I reach the top of the steps. And sometimes with my 2-year-old daughter in my hands and sometimes my 7-year-old son on my back. So those are all like the little wins that I have, being able to do all of that and not feel like terrible about it. So later, I'd rather enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight to carry upstairs.
Yeah, it is. And once you do it, they want to do it every single time. Right? It's like those small wins that are very, very enriching for me in my life. So
yeah, when you started to get into the program, what changed for you? Like, what was big parts of the process that allowed you to get these great results?
I didn't tell anyone first that I was going to do the program. I just joined in because I just didn't want to hear if all the concerns that could potentially come up. And even if it failed, I'm like, I've done a lot of things and, failed a few times and purchased a few things that I really didn't need. And I went through all those phases and I was like, this is one where worst case, well, I wasted some money and then let's see what happens. So I think that was the part for me is not having to justify this joining the program with other people because I would have, again, put myself in the same situation, put other people's opinions before my own. So that was the first milestone for me was just like get in. And the second time was Deck is a great coach. I'm glad I got lucky to kind of like join with him. I don't know other people, so I can't tell. Obviously, I can't compare him with other people, but he seemed like he was the right one for me. And he knew when to push and when to pull back. I think that's one thing common among our South Asian people. We have like huge egos. We know everything. We're very accomplished. And I had to dismantle that myself because it's very easy to kind of know in theory what the program is about. One plate, carbs, fiber, and protein. It seems very simple, but then as soon as you start filling in that plate or even bringing that plate in, and you're like trying to push the limits of, what you can fill it in with. And even to this date, I feel like, yeah, I cheat once in a while here and there, but I know that I'm cheating as opposed to like trying to avoid that thinking about it. So I'm looking at it, I'm like taking my time. And I think that's when the second change happened is I was being more aware of what I was putting into my body. And with that, those small decisions really like started to come into play. Switch from fries to salad when I was outside. And the salad was probably my biggest change. Is I never ever in my life thought I would eat salad, and it just completely changed my life. I think I could feel like I can overeat a little bit on the salad, and then the components of the salad and the stuff you put into it versus the stuff you can take out. So many things was like the things you take for granted. Just order a Caesar salad, and then it's like filled with like all this kind of like different things, and all of a sudden you feel like, oh my God, what did I just do? And so all of those things I feel like paved the way for, once we met the halfway point, I realized, oh my God, I'm losing weight, I'm feeling good. And I was like, no brainer, just follow the program and then see where it goes. And when I got over the 200-pound mark, under the 200-pound mark, that was like my biggest gratifying feeling that I'd never ever. It was a long time ago that I felt like I weighed under 200 pounds. So at that point, now I'm like still like, I feel like I want to get to the 180s. But then, as I said, talking to Deck and everything, that's not the program right now. And I'm like trying to be in the maintenance phase, which again has its own challenges. But I feel like overall it's pretty good in terms of following the program, which was the biggest takeaway from this. Is when you commit to a program and follow it, you will see the results.
Yeah, the maintenance phase does come with its own like challenges and concerns, and like I can see that the last 2 months you've been able to maintain your weight between like a 2 kilo range, which is like really, really good. That's epic. That's like a perfect storm, because it allows you to have a little bit of leeway, but not too much where you're gonna go take photos in India and you're gonna go, what did I do? So it's a really good place to be. But like being able to even think like, oh, I can get to 180, maybe I can do that. That's something that you didn't have that scope before, right? Like you questioning whether it was going to work in the first place.
I know. So for me, that was like the mindset changes. I can do this.
Yeah.
It's previously there was like, oh, what's the point? And just shovel some bunch of rice and chicken into my mouth. And very soon I'm like, oh my God. And I used to eat pretty late at the night. So food became a reward. Yeah. And rather than another meal, it was like my reward for my hard work during the day and not eating enough during the day and, consuming liquid calories and all that. So a lot of things fell away. All my bad habits kind of like dropped out because I just didn't have time for them anymore. And now I'm like, I'll have my occasional coffee from a local coffee shop or whatever, and I'll add some stuff to it. But I'm just staring at the cup. Like, what is this? And I never finished the entire cup of coffee ever. It has changed fundamentally how I view food and everything else and what I put into my body.
Yeah, that's a massive piece. Like we said when we first met, it's like you're really successful in other areas and it's just shedding light in this area how to be successful. And that awareness piece is massive. So like to be successful and drop the weight that you have, what type of stuff were you doing with your nutrition? Like how did you find that process?
So I found that I was pretty terrible at making food decisions. So initially at least, I experimented on a few things. I think one of the biggest things for me that really helps with the program is the part of the program is to take pictures and send it to your coach. I think that really helped. My obsession for eating or making rice a part of my meal is one that I kept it, that even today I eat rice every day, but the portion control just blew my mind as to what kind of difference it makes. So it was a mental challenge for me to like reduce the quantity of rice I was consuming, just because the amount of rice that I ate just from a very, from childhood on to like even now, it's natural that you eat the rice for dinner. And I just couldn't get myself to like say, you know what, I have to avoid this completely, because that would have caused me to like quit the program for sure.
Absolutely.
So I did a little bit of that. So that portion control on the carbs was like huge. And then adding the vegetables to the mix was the second one. It's like, for me, if you said vegetables, it probably meant like potatoes. So I didn't realize it's not veggies, it's another form of carbs. So I was like, oh, that is revealing. The things that you take for granted inside your head and make these justifications, that was like dismantling one by one, and having to see your food after you've consumed like a long time ago, and then your coach bringing it up and like, hey, look at this, and Loom videos a little like embarrassing for me. I don't want to look at my food again. And then I started making them look good. It's like sometimes it would have the right amount, getting the proportions right. And me being an architect myself, I was like designing all the buildings and getting all the proportions right. And then I was like, I come home and like, this is like the simplest thing to like visually you can tell there's a quantity of carbs and fiber and veggies, and you have your protein. And why was that so difficult? And then I started switching to like my factor meals. It was, for me, I didn't have to think about it. And I realized this as soon as I was in a very stressful mindset, I was stressed out. End of the day, I was in no way to make decisions. And sometimes not having to make those decisions helped. So I would not eat like a factor meal every single day. I still eat them, feel like they are my go-to if I don't want to make any decisions. So that really helped. And I knew exactly how many calories. I knew exactly, and I would show the breakdown, to Deck, and he was like, he'll analyze it. He'll be like, hey, that looks a little too much on the fat and too much on this and that. But he would super analyze even those calories and the mix of those calories. So that kind of like made me more aware when I was, out and about. And even the meals for lunch that I would have with my partner outside, we would meet in a local bar, and we still do. And I went from eating mostly and only fried chicken and stuff like that to I'd still eat a little bit of fried chicken, but more of the salad. And then from the salad, we started getting a little bit less of the cheese and then less of the dressing, and
More of the green stuff.
We unpacked it. And you don't have to sacrifice taste for losing weight and everything else. That was like, I think if I could tell somebody what was the best part of the program, was I retained my taste buds without having to give up on them. Because ultimately, if I had to like go cold turkey and switch completely to something else, I might have followed it for a few weeks, but then I would have dropped. So there's no way I would have. So that retaining and keeping the taste buds alive, I think, while controlling the portions and being aware of what you eat, made a big difference.
Massive. Yeah, like you said before, like even with the rice, it's the same type of thing. You've been so accustomed to flavors, portion sizes, so it going to the complete polar opposite of that would be, one, very, very difficult. Two, is not really a long-term play if you like those things, and just finding that nice common middle ground. I really like the factor style meals. We do the same thing over here with the company. I wake up with the meals at my door every day, and it's like I don't have to think about it whether we're having a good day or a bad day.
Right.
I can't lie my way through a Deliveroo or an Uber Eats because they're staring in front of me.
That's
These
it.
are my meals,
Yeah.
And I think they're really good for busy people like yourself and people who don't want to think about some things that are kind of important, but they also require some effort as well when you're in the learning process. And for just productivity standpoints, if you can do, they're awesome. When it came to any other challenges, so as you obviously got past that, like that 200-pound mark, did you see any other challenges, any other things that you were working to resolve outside of the food side?
Yeah, the steps blew my mind completely. How little or how many steps you could do while going about your day. It looks like I average about 4,500 steps a day now, if I didn't think about it and just went about my day. But the impact it has, and it's not even like some specialized weightlifting training or nothing, it's just walking, and how it had a huge impact on how I was going about my day and logging them and seeing that I'm capable of doing 10,000 steps consistently over a week. That to me was, very revealing in the sense that I did have the time to have that physical activity. In the past, I would never believe that. I was like, oh, I was so busy and using work as a reason to like not do all of that. So that was challenging to get myself commit to that time for myself was very important. And once I started doing that, I purchased this treadmill that was sitting and catching dust. And from there to like, now it asked me to reset the oil for lubrication. I never knew those messages even showed up on a treadmill.
It's got a service like a
Yeah,
car. You've done so many miles that you
yeah.
need to take it for an oiling.
Right. So there were like funny moments like that all the way along, and we were like, oh wow, that's pretty good. I put some miles into it and logging the miles and seeing them all. And they were very, very effortless at some point, because it started off with like, well, I need to make the time to like go through the phase of like, I'll do some steps. And then in the night, I'm like frantically getting some steps in to make them work. I'm sure everybody's gone through it, because you do not want to fail. I feel like that's the part that I found out about myself, that finally it had turned where I was not going to let myself down, and I was just going to do whatever it took to kind of stay on the program and achieve my small little goals for the day and stuff. Those are all the challenges, mostly creating the time was the biggest challenge, and making sure that you followed the program. But overall, I felt like it's after some point it went on autopilot. I just kept, you went about your day. You didn't even like think about it, and you were logging everything in. And that was like the part I was coasting to the program, doing everything that I was supposed to do, eating the way I was supposed to eat. And it felt like really, really good and effortless at that point.
Yeah, you've gone through that like trouble, like the unconscious competence to understand what you need to do, the hard work of finding how to do all those things. You're seeing some results, and then that's when I guess it's just the hours, the practice, right? The more you practice, the more it becomes easier to do. So then you've just hit the stride from there.
That's exactly it. And the amount of people you inspire going about your day, everybody wants to know, are you on Ozempic? I'm not on Ozempic.
So it would have been easier.
I know. I just like what is this Ozempic? Everybody keeps asking me because I think everybody assumes that you're at an age that you're not going to get on a program and you're not going to go through the work and all that. But as soon as you tell them where you're like going through this program and you're showing them pictures of your food and everything, they're like, oh wow, this is real. And they start like, taking their own health seriously and start asking, hey, what did you do? And all of that. So for me, the biggest win for me was totally convince my wife to join the program. So she's now part of the program, which is great. And it makes it so much better if you're able to join together. And I always wonder what would have happened had we joined it together. We've been on walks together, which I would have never imagined if we would have ever gone on walks on a weeknight, because we were like getting our steps in and, it's having conversations, exploring the neighborhood. There's like so many positive things that came about it. Again, are we able to do it every single night? Probably not. But the fact that I know we can is I'm like, hey, babe, do you want to go out for a walk? Is as simple as, oh yeah, let's put on our shoes and just head out. I know it is possible now if I wanted to. So all of those things. And in the past, I would never even imagine to ask my wife to like, hey, let's go for a walk. What are we, like 70 years old or something? And then we are walking and we see all these older couples doing. I'm like, you know what? They're actually, wiser
They're
than
onto
us.
something.
They're doing everything. And it makes sense. And we're like looking at other couples and cracking jokes, and it becomes like effortless. And we're like walk for an hour, come back home, and you're like done. You don't have to look at the steps anymore.
I don't know about you, but like when me and Sarah do them, or we take the dogs out for a walk, there's always better conversation because you're outside the house and you're not wrapped up with what's going on there, and you get an opportunity to de-stress, decompress, and actually, I guess, have different styles of conversations, which then only contributes to the relationship too.
Yep, absolutely. So, and again, sometimes good, sometimes bad, because sometimes you'll have to talk about stuff that you don't want to talk about. But hey, it's you're not avoiding stuff anymore, and you're able to like make it easier for yourself and your partner to kind of like, it can just be a conversation, right? And we can move on to whatever else. And most important thing is we are exploring the neighborhood, we're exploring things that we've not been to on foot, and we've had conversations, and you're making physical activity fun again.
That's awesome. I'm super glad for that. And tell me, you mentioned the challenges for maintenance are a little different now. So like, what was that shift when you moved from hitting that goal of yours to now moving into that maintenance phase?
So the maintenance phase, I have to be honest, I just didn't get the point of it. I'm like, so you mean I don't have to lose weight anymore? And initially I didn't get it. I think the part that it really clicked for me was I thought the program was over. Like, this is it, you're done. So they just wanted to get some more money and check in once in a while, it's over. But then I realized that is like the meat of the program. It's like you're on your own and someone is there watching you. You're not on really like a weight loss program anymore, but you're like kind of in a weight maintenance program. And that is like so important because now you're not doing this for losing weight or anything else. You're like going about your day, and all these decisions that you're making are like again coming back. And I've seen glimpses of like what I've made those decisions so fast like I was before in the program. Like I would just like, hey, let me get that large coffee and let me add that sugar, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And able to stop myself, and I'm like, no, if I have to, I'll go from a large to a small. Those are all things I'm like yelling and screaming at myself inside my head. And that was when I realized, okay, this is real, because it is so easy to slip back into the old ways, and you're building your muscle muscle to kind of like stay inside that perfect gap for you, which the perfect range for you, which is, where I'm at, and feel like you cannot afford to do this again, like not to yourself, not to your family. So that mental struggle in the maintenance phase was very real for me, because like with anything else, you go through the initial phase of like everybody complimenting you, like losing weight, and you feel good, and you're like, yeah, going about your day, but then you're like coming back and like making some dumb choices again. And then that disconnect immediately comes to the forefront, and you're like, you are responsible for your decisions, especially the small ones like food and everything, because they're critical, but the decision itself is so small. And now I've put things in place where they're my circle of people that I hang out with. I tell them, do not let me eat anything stupid. If you find me ordering something I should not be ordering, just speak up, and I would do the same for you. And we've set up this buddy system so far. Like I said, I would go from eating only fried stuff, and I've done that in the program. And Deck has pointed, without saying do not eat it, he's asked me to like, hey, how about reduce the portion, add a little bit of broccoli on the side, and add this, and eat the broccoli first. And so there are like a lot of these things that we went through the program that I have tools now, right? I can control. I can still eat the fried chicken, eat like 1/4 of it, satisfy my craving for that, and then go about my day. All those shifts and the decision making abilities comes to the forefront during the maintenance phase. Like, how are you doing? And you're not going to always get it right, but I felt like I got it right most of the time. And that's the reason why you are seeing that I'm within that range, because every time I go to the upper end of the range, I'm like, this should not be happening. I'm not going to do this again. And then pull back up.
Yeah, what we try and do with that maintenance phase as well is like everyone has like an upper limit, whether they know it or not. At some point, when you get that picture taken in India, or you step on the scales once in a while, or you try a new t-shirt on, everyone's got an upper limit that they hate. Whereas now you're just resetting that upper limit to, well, the best case scenario for you. If you hit that 88 kilos or that whatever, that 191 pounds or something, then you know that that's where you need to. It's an automatic adjuster. It's the thing where you're like, oh, okay, prompt, let me not do that.
Yep. Yeah, you've
Let
set
me,
up a system where your body automatically knows you cannot like afford to go one way, you have to go back the other way, and you're making decisions to kind of support that. So
yeah. It's all about that practice, because once fat loss is over, there's new goals that you have to chase, because you don't need to lose any more weight. That's actually a good question. I know you said about like getting to 180, but like what are you working towards now as like a long-term goal?
the thing that really also helped me was I signed up for personal training a long while back, even before the program. And I was going through it, like getting to a local gym here next to where I live, and they focus on weightlifting and strength training and all that. So that to me was like very good, because I didn't feel like I had to go do cardio there, in front of other people. And I was scheduling the sessions at 5 a.m. in the morning, twice a week, and I still do. So that I didn't have to think about it. It was like like a meal, like a prep meal. I didn't have to think about it. I just showed up. Somebody was waiting for me. I just went through a 1 hour really intense workout. So there I'm starting to build goals as to like how much I can lift, but in a controlled way. I'm always scared of like getting hurt, because that would just throw a wrench on like everything that I'm doing. And I just don't want to be there. So I'm very careful. So my goal is to like slowly increase the weight over a period of time to something that I can start seeing muscle definition within myself, and how I'm like able to go about my day without having to go through pains and aches and all that. So that is my goal, is to like a long-term maintenance phase, so to speak. I would want to be able to lift heavy things without having to feel like, I can't. And then mostly I told myself that I would be able to lift both my 7-year-old and my 2-year-old at the same time and walk a distance. And that to me is still my goal. Is I feel like you should be able to lift your own kids, obviously when they're like smaller. I mean, if you can when they're older, that's great, but you don't want to. But the younger kids, I think they have a lot of fun, as from a family standpoint, being very close to their parents, both in terms of physical affection and being able to like, have them around and do stuff with them without getting winded and tired. So long-term goal is to be a good father, a good husband, and in terms of being able to perform tasks easily, and then achieve my professional goals while keeping myself and my health a priority. So that to me is my long-term goal. So
it's a really good one, because you'll have friends or people around you that sacrifice that personal stuff for the growth of extra hours and the fast food, just so that you can get back to work and stuff.
right.
Whereas if you've got those meal delivery services, it's the same thing. You're going to do the same amount of work now, just not with with 10,000 calories instead of a factor meal.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly it. Exactly.
perfect.
I do have to say that the struggle is real. You're not going to get it right all the time, right? And I went through that. Travels were like a little bit challenging. Luckily, I don't travel a whole lot, but when I did go outside of my typical environment, it was challenging. So when I went to conventions and things like that. So, but even then, with the guidance, deck constantly being, my case, like we went to Vegas and I came back having lost some weight, which was
It's crazy.
unbelievable. So I did feel like I now have the tools to like kind of push and pull, tweak everything, tweak one meal. If I had a big meal on one time, and I would just like know what to pull back on the next one. And so making these small decisions were like completely changed my mindset. And as a result, started losing weight.
But I'm super proud. I remember having the first conversation. It's so great to see the changes that you've made so far.
I scroll through my pictures every once in a while. I'm like,
Yeah,
it feels good. Yeah.
that's good. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for this. I really appreciate it. It's great catching up. What have you got planned for the rest of the day? Anything nice? You got a big work day?
I've been sitting in front of the computer a lot. I have been like focused on what can I do differently. I'm going through a very, very stressful part of my work, like in the last few months, and even with now, a lot of things happening. But my day is basically spending time dropping the kids off at school, which is the best part of my day, and then coming back to work, getting a lot of small things done, which is what I plan to do today as well, and kind of wind down the day with hopefully another workout, which has been challenging, but I've gotten myself to like do my couple of home workouts started again. So it's a seamless transition from one phase to another phase, being a dad, being a business owner, to being a partner, and being a husband, and back to being a dad, and then finally being myself. So it's every day is like stressful and tough, but I feel like I'm equipped to kind of like take it on.
I'm sure. Absolutely. 100%. All right, dude. Well, thank you for this. I will make sure we catch up very, very soon. We're coming over your way in September, so I'll give you a nudge, whether it will be in Chicago and New York or just New York and Chicago. I'll let you know, and we
Okay.
can meet up for a coffee. Hopefully, it'll be less busy by then.
No, I'll make my time. This is important. You're important. I want to thank you and the rest of all your coaching team and Deck. He's been great. You've been great with what you've accomplished. I feel like the amount of difference you make, and people like myself and our lives is just unimaginable. Put a value to it. So I feel like you're doing an amazing job of introducing this program and running it so successfully. So I wish you all the best, and I can't wait to see 1 year from now, 2 year from now, if we meet, how we look and how we talk about stuff. I want to always look forward to meeting the best version of myself in the future. So
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. And thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
all right,
Okay.
thank you.
I thank you, dude. Speak to you
Bye.
soon, okay?